We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
What's up, Cal fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Golden Bearcast. I am one of your hosts, Andy. Alongside me is Rob. What's happening, buddy?
We're recording again with another episode, so, you know, it's always good times just talking about college football, the sport we love so much. But who knows? I mean,
To a fault?
To a fault, yeah. Maybe too much. But what are we talking about in this one? What do we got?
So, I want to take us back a little bit here. Twist and Hook went and did a lot of articles on Right for California about the ACC conference and the lawsuits with North Carolina and with Florida State.
You mean Clemson and Florida State?
That's what I meant. Sorry, North Carolina. So here's the thing. I will admit, I probably read about a paragraph of each of those, and I was like, damn, this is just like way too intense for me.
Legal, like,
Yeah.
just...
I was like, I was not made to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
But I really did appreciate the fact that it shed a lot of light and at least helped me understand. I think like the big question that I have as a fan is more so just like, what is the likelihood that this actually happens?
That's a very good question.
And I think in reading, so I've read some of Twist and Hook's posts, and then I've stayed in touch on Yahoo Sports with like Dan Wetzel and Ross Dellinger, and like those two guys specifically have been covering it really, really well. And my main takeaway, which I would love your thoughts on, is that it seems like unless Florida State and there's a couple of things happening here. It seems like unless Florida State and Clemson have $500 million sitting around, that this is going to be really hard for them to get out of. They're going into mediation. Mediation is to try and take conflict to some form of resolution. That did not read to me this week when I was reading that they're getting what they want. But the other thing that has happened is the Big 10, which is just such a dumb name. Like, might as well just call it the Big and just drop the number. Yeah. But like, they have come out and been like, we're good.
Yeah.
And the SEC came out and was like, we're also good. We don't want Florida State. Right. So, and that was Sankey came out and kind of said that. So, and he was talking smack about them complaining about not getting into the playoffs. Yeah. So it was like just shooting bullets over there. So you do have this like the landscape, and then the third final piece is like Brett Yormark, the commissioner for the Big 12, came out and said the same line before the Pac-12's demise, which is we're open for business, right? And I do think I guess it's being a good business person just by saying that and always keeping an open mind. But he doesn't impress me. I think he gets a lot of credit, and I I don't know how deserving he is of it.
I think the chips might have just fallen perfectly for him to a certain degree.
I can't. Yeah, it's like one of those things. Like, who said that? It's like preparation plus opportunity equals luck. So like, who knows? Maybe like they were really prepared, and that it came up, and they like lucked into it. But I think that, and there's some other things that he's doing around negotiating with Allstate to get the naming rights of the conference. So it would be called the Allstate Big 12 Conference, which I was like, that's stupid as shit when I heard it.
Money.
And then I was like, yo, saying it out loud, like, that's easy money right there. I was like, oh, that's actually a really good idea. Like,
I mean, it's what Europe does. So,
So that, all right, you know what? Fine. Good move, Brett Yormark. So that's sort of what's going on around. So, Rob, I'm going to just pass this question over to you, which is, from your perspective, where do you see this thing going?
Oh man, it's so hard because there's so many rumors flying around about this. Like, and who has what leverage and who's what trying to say what, and there's like the rumors of like the Big 12 trying to get private equity involved.
Yes.
So for me, right,
that was the piece where I was like, I didn't understand the private equity play, but it was like, with the payouts. Oh my, yeah. There's obviously more to this than we have allotted to talk through today, but that was the piece where I was like, damn, you bring private equity on board.
Oh,
and I think
everything gets weird.
It gets so weird, and it's like people are throwing in money in there not to just help those schools round out and compete with the SEC. They want an exit. So the second you bring private equity in, like you have to have an exit, and I know a ton of people that have had their companies purchased by private equity. Those cultures, environments, like they change. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying they're all for the worst, but I haven't heard that many glory stories of private equity came in and kept the culture exactly the same, and then great, they just flipped the business in 4 years, and all of a sudden, like it's usually like, okay, we're going to replace a lot of leaders, we're going to do a lot of things differently, and we're going to optimize this business to be sold, right? That's where I was like, wow, that's going to get real weird real fast.
Dude, can you imagine if private equity comes in Big 12? Like, let's say, right, and then Big 12 goes under, right? They're not winning. The TV money's not like doing too hot. Advertising money's not doing too hot. So what does private equity do? They come in and they decide to sell off the Big 12 by parts. So like, can you imagine having a free basically auction sale of like conferences going to be like, we'll take Utah off your hands. Like we'll take, we'll take Oklahoma State off your hands. Like we'll take Arizona off your hands. Like that would be wild, but it could, that's a possibility of it happening. Like I'm not sure how those rights work, but like that's kind of what it sounds like, if it's because all of this is basically built around your bill of, or your grant of rights, and like TV broadcasting. Like that's basically what you're doing. You're selling off the rights to broadcast TV, and that's what's tying all these schools together basically within the conference. It's not a handshake of like, we've decided to become a conference and an alliance. Like it's not built around that, right? So yeah, I think, let's see, where do I think this is going? I think ultimately I think it's exactly as you said. Unless there's some loophole in the legal documents, which it sounds like there really isn't, judging by Twist and Hook's analysis. And we have Florida State fans like coming into the comments and stuff like that. We're like, we really don't care what happens to you guys. Like this is purely just a legal expert going over the documents. Like, and they say like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like it's a lawyer going over legal documents. We're not saying that Florida State's going to do this or Clemson's going to do this or that the ACC is going to do this. It's like, we're just reading the legal documents as
unbiased
as right? we really don't care.
Even know you guys.
Who are you? It's like we've talked about it with the writers whenever we put those posts up. It's like that scene from Endgame, and like all Clemson and Florida State are Wanda, and they come up to Thanos, and she's like, "You took everything from me." Thanos like, I don't even know who you are. That's basically us right now. Like, we don't even know who you are. Like, what are you talking about? We didn't take anything from you.
We're Thanos in this story?
I guess kinda.
Oh man.
Yeah. But yeah, it's very interesting. I think the key thing here too, since we're talking about like the TV rights and stuff, the big like thing was Florida State and Clemson wanting out because they wanted one of two things, right? They wanted more competitiveness and like a league that kind of helps them maybe get into the college football playoffs, which is like hilarious because at this point now it's like all you gotta do is win the conference and you're going to be in every year, or like super high enough and you'll get a at-large bid. But yeah, I think that's what you were alluding to, right? Like, what makes you think that you would be more competitive in the SEC? Like, what makes you think you'd be more competitive in the Big Ten? The Big 12 is probably the only one that makes sense because they lost their two heavyweights in Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC. But with that is the question that I would probably want to ask you with your business mind. Is this would basically be forcing ESPN to play credit card roulette, right? Because because ESPN has the grant of rights for both the ACC and the Big 12. Big 12 network is run by ESPN. ACC network also run by ESPN. So if ESPN wanted to move the Florida State and Clemson to the Big 12, do they really have any incentive to do so if both of those teams are already on their menu of games they can select from? Or do they really think that them playing in the Big 12 creates better matchups for television?
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
It's a really good question. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we're not with Disney, so,
Yeah, I don't know. I still have had one thought that throughout this entire process, which is the competitiveness of the league this fall may matter. Like for the ACC, I still think there's this sort of war of who's third. It's like we're all going for the bronze medal. We're like gold. We're going up against like the USA track, the team that just ran the 4x400. We're going up against them, so everyone else is like, cool, we're just gonna go for third. You guys got the first two slots. But I mean, it really does seem like there's kind of this trivial fight where Brett Yormark's like, we're the third best league, and then go flip over to Jim Phillips, we're the third best league, and it's like that's what the Pac, we're the third best league. It's like, dude, I mean, goodness. But I think that if the ACC was more competitive, dare I say, like Cal and Stanford come in and SMU as well, and they're a little bit more competitive, does that help? Because, like, you look at the Big 12, and it really isn't a bunch of schools that I necessarily think are all that fascinating. If you think about, like Cincinnati is basically a football program to me. Like, I just don't, and, like, even then, and they had a lot of success in, like, recent seasons, it just doesn't, like, if Cincinnati was visiting, I'm like, okay, that's cool. But, like, Miami is coming. I'm fired up to see Miami. And they haven't really been elite Miami in a very long time. Yeah. But it doesn't matter. I've told everybody, it's like the Miami games can't miss. Yeah. NC State, too. Like, NC State hasn't had nearly the success on the football field. But it's still a name that, like, people are aware of, Yeah. And I think that there's this sort of this battleground that has taken place between these two conferences where you're like, well, who's going to win out or what's worth more. And so I think at the end of the day, what will matter is it will probably not be as much for, I don't know what ESPN would think, but I do know that if your mark is able to secure that money to top up to $50 million for each team, then all these universities are thinking just short term, what's good for my pockets. Yeah. And I think they'll jump for that and this maybe ill-conceived idea that they could be at the top of that league. And I just wonder, it's like, if you get 1 or 2 losses there, and you end up having a Cincinnati, or you have somebody else that has an easier non-conference schedule, they run the table, they get that playoff seed. Now you're the second year, hoping you're going to get an at-large in the third best conference. To me, their game probably shouldn't be go to the Big 12. It should be, hey, we need to get to the SEC, even if y'all are shooting bullets over at us. That's where they need to be. And it sort of seems, or the Big Ten. And I'm really interested to see what the Big Ten looks like too, because I just think I think Oregon's going to come in and make some serious noise. Yeah. I'm so happy this year because I'm not getting any incriminating or mean or just general dickish text messages from anybody about what the score is going to be or anything like that. It's actually amazing.
We don't have any connections to any of these fan bases that we're playing.
It's fantastic.
There's only one person. Our dear friend Sean. Sean's the only one because he's talking smack about Miami. Right? But that's
yeah, that's okay because he's also a Cal fan.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually it's so funny seeing people from USC or Washington. I've just been oh yeah, good luck this year.
Enjoy.
It's don't care.
Enjoy Des Moines, Iowa in the middle of November. Yeah, I think for me the last thing I would want to say about this is your point about how this season is so fascinating, particularly in the ACC. I think for Florida State and Clemson, Cal, Stanford, and SMU coming into the conference was a win-win for them. They might have said I think it wasn't great for them, but I think ultimately it ends up in a win-win because this is my thought process, right? And tell me if you disagree. If Cal and Stanford and SMU do well, right? I think Florida State and Clemson, their argument is going to be, look, it's making us worse. Us at the top, because there's no B tier of teams. It's just everyone else after me and Clemson, or me and FSU, everyone's just cannibalizing themselves. There's no real push up from someone else. Flip side is if Cal, Stanford, and SMU do terribly in the ACC, then their argument is going to be see, look what we told you. This is why we disagreed of bringing them into, to play football in our conference. They're just dragging us down because they're not winning any games. They're not making any noise. They're just losing left and right. I think for them, they can make either of those cases. But for us as Cal, I think because the league after 1 and 2, in my opinion, is so jumbled and it can be anyone. I think I was what podcast was I listening to? It was either a podcast or I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he was look at the ACC championship games the last 5-6 years. It's usually been Florida State or Clemson as at least one of the teams participating, but the other team that's participating is always changing yearly. Yeah. So there's a sliver of can you catch lightning in a bottle this year and get to that point? Because then, or even challenge for that. Challenge to even try, maybe we're 1 or 2 games off from being in the ACC championship game. Because the moment that happens, we're back on the map football-wise. Mm-hmm. We're being talked about going into next year. And, with realignment possibly happening again in the next 3 to 5 years, you need that success because most of this stuff with all the conference alignment stuff is all recency bias. Yeah. Unless you're a perennial, blue blood team, right?
100%.
So
hence Cincinnati again.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm looking for. It's like how much of the wins and losses from the non-Florida State and Clemson teams in the ACC will direct the narrative for those schools moving forward.
You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo or honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker out there, you can try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. Listen, I'm going to dare you to do it. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs that you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and then grab a few more napkins and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I think strong non-conference performance. And I would say, yeah, I know your point about cannibalizing, but I think this is going to sound really political, a good middle class is going to propel the conference to be more credible. Mm-hmm. So the more teams that you have that are in bowl games, we've heard that argument over and over and over again. And the less bottom feeders that you have, a little bit more like what made the Pac-12 so good was like we were on here on the West Coast being like we play a great brand of football, but the rest of the country doesn't think so because all of our records have 2 losses or more.
Yeah.
Right? And we sort of knew that, but we also have seen these teams catch lightning in a bottle, whether you want to call it UCF, Cincinnati, TCU, where they've had this like incredible one season run, and then they have this amazing outcome or invite that happens because of it, because of the fact that like those are gonna stop happening. It's a limited supply. But like to your point, like these teams were also like the top dog in their conference, and then they get promoted right into Big 12, and then or elsewhere, mm-hmm. and then they never near those heights again, and they sort of disappeared in relevancy. And at the end of the day, like this thing is really more so about brand than anything else.
Yeah, and
like that's the thing, and that's what I think like the Big Ten was trying to do when they were initially looking at Stanford and Cal plus Oregon, Washington. Mm-hmm. They were looking at who are historic universities that we can bring into this conference that have a brand name beyond just football, basketball.
Yeah.
And like Cal will continue to be one of those. We just cannot be 3-9.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it has to be.
I don't think we can even be 6-6.
I think we could keep floating by if we're bowl eligible. And I know people are out there like throwing their phones against the wall.
I don't know how that works long term. I think we can afford 6-6 over the next 3 to 5 years, but that's just my personal opinion.
We'll save that for another.
Yeah, that's another discussion. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was Golden Bearcast for today.
Yeah.
Rob, I'll do the close.
You want to do the close? All right.
If you found us, you already know where you were listening. Otherwise, you can catch all of our tweets at California Golden Bearcast. That's our handle.
At Golden Bearcast.
At Golden Bearcast. Right from California. Rob does amazing work on that site.
The guys do amazing.
Check out the photography. The writers do amazing work on that site. And we're gearing up for the opener against Davis here. How's that? Nothing less. Nothing less to talk about. Go Bears.
Go Bears.
When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do meaningful work every day. You get to be the biker who codes as fast as he rides, crafting advanced tech solutions that transform car buying. Or a guitarist who develops harmonious apps and websites, connecting people to people and businesses, all in real time. A savvy soccer mom running solution sets as passionately as she runs gameplays. Be the super secret keeper designing cybersecurity systems to protect private data and websites. A planet protector, expanding EV battery life and inventing more ways to build a better future for all. When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do career-defining work that solves the greatest problems of our time. Join us and connect to work that improves lives, including yours. Learn more about our family of businesses at cox.career/tech.